Great Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome to my week-free NFL recap. We're going to go for all the games this week except for the Steelers-Raiders game and recap them. I already did recap the Steelers-Raiders game. It's my Steelers Game Day post-game, so it's one of the prior videos here, so please tune into that one if you would like. It's definitely an interesting one for sure. Steelers played very well this week. We're 2-1, so hats off to us. 2-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. Going to Houston this coming week for a big game, so if we could beat Houston, that puts us at 3-1, and maintains control over the division for us. So it's definitely good vibes in Pittsburgh right now. Great time to be a Steeler fan. It's also a great time to be a fan of some other teams, including the Miami Dolphins. And it's also a bad time to be a fan of some teams, including the Denver Broncos. We'll get into that one for sure. And I have a lot to say on that one. So stay tuned for that one, that's for sure. You know what team, though, surprisingly, it's a good week to be a fan of? This team, the Arizona Cardinals. Congratulations to them. It finally paid off. New head coach Jonathan Gannon, new GM Monty Ossenfort. They got their first win against all the odds, defeating Dallas. We'll get to that one later in the show, but good job, Arizona. That's for sure. You guys did great. The other thing was this. I just want to say this real quickly about the Cardinals before I get further into the show. Good job. You've done really good this year. You lost both your games. You lost by 4 points to Washington, 3 points to the Giants, and then you blow out Dallas. Dallas was 12-point favorites in this game. Guess who won by 12 points? The Arizona Cardinals, so give it up for them. Hint. I know I picked them to have the worst record in the league like everybody else did, but I knew one thing. This team was not tanking. Don't ever say this team's tanking again. They pulled off this big upset. This team could easily have 4 or 5 wins this year. Look, I get it. They might blow the chance at having Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr., but they still have Kyler Murray. Sorry to burp. Sorry, I always burp on this, so I don't know why. But, yeah. And who knows where the 2 places I thought, before I get into the actual bread and butter, which is the games, I just want to say this about the Cardinals. Everyone was thinking, oh, they're going to draft number 1, they're going to get Caleb, and they're going to trade Kyler Murray. The 2 most logical places I thought Kyler Murray could go if he was traded were the Vikings and the Dolphins. Obviously, with Tua playing at this level right now in Miami, I don't think he's going to go to South Beach anytime soon, Kyler Murray. Vikings, that's a possibility. I had this weird, little ripple effect where it was a crazy idea. I highly doubt this happens. It would probably be good if the Cardinals did get Caleb Williams, this ripple effect. So the Cardinals select Williams, trade Kyler Murray to Minnesota. Minnesota trades Kirk Cousins to San Francisco. San Francisco trades Brock Purdy to New England. And Mac Jones is the odd man out in all this. But who knows if that's going to happen. So the Patriots are 1-2. The Vikings are 0-3. We'll get to them in a minute. But that's definitely a realistic possibility for sure. So keep an eye out for something like that. But I doubt the Cardinals pick number 1 overall now. I doubt it because they're going to play hard. They do have a tough task this week in San Francisco. But they're going to play hard and they're going to play with energy the rest of the way. So I can easily see this team getting 4, maybe 5 wins even. And that means they won't draft number 1. And who knows when Kyler comes back. This team could actually be really good next year. Credit to Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort. They are really good at their job. So 100% credit to them. That change was needed. And Gannon and Ossenfort, they both brought new life to the Cardinals. So good job for them. And that's why I'm wearing the Cardinals jersey, because it's a big upset. And they beat Dallas. So even better. They beat Dallas. And we'll get to this in a minute, but Philly is now first in the NFC East, so good for Philly. We're going to start, though, off with Thursday Night Football. Another good thing if you're an Eagles fan, the outcome of this NFC East team, the Niners put the Giants further in the hole by defeating them 30-12 on Thursday Night Football in the Bay Area. Look, we all know the Niners are good. They've scored 30 points. How much of a coincidence is this? The 49ers have scored 30 points in all three of their games. Week 1 here in Pittsburgh. Week 2 against the Rams in LA. And week 3, as I continue on, I'm tired because I didn't get the best of sleep last night, but I'm fine. But week 3 against the Giants. So credit to the Niners. They're doing great, and they're pretty much my Super Bowl favorite at this point. I only see them losing 1 or 2 games at most, maybe. So it'll be interesting to see what happens between them and Philly at this point, because those are obviously the 2 top dogs in the NFC, especially after Dallas loses. So that's nice. But Dallas or San Francisco, they played well. They're playing well. Have faith in that defense, and they're doing great things. So credit to San Francisco. Next up, we have some 1 o'clock games to get to here. We're going to start off with the Patriots. They defeated the New York Jets by a final score of 15-10. This was a defensive battle. I expected it to be a defensive battle. There was not a lot of throwing in this one. Neither teams have the best of passing offenses. There was a hurricane or a tropical storm in the New York, New Jersey tri-state area, Connecticut too, but the tri-state area. But anyway, though, that's why the score was low scoring. Same with that, and the offenses are not very good. Totally expected a defensive battle here, and the Patriots and Bill Belichick, with their defensive expertise, won that defensive battle, so good job for them. As for the Jets, they're going to look to sign a veteran quarterback, possibly. Unfortunately for Jets fans, though, Robert Saleh, the head coach, doubled down on Zach Wilson being the starter. Zach Wilson, I have said this from the very beginning, is trash. He is nothing but trash. Sorry if I got feisty there a little bit, but he is not a good quarterback. I knew this when he was coming out of college. The Jets should have listened to me, so Zach Wilson, not very good. So yeah, definitely. The Patriots, though, look impressive. That defense, they came very close to beating both Philly and Miami. They eke out a win on the road against the Jets. It'll be interesting to see what they do in Dallas this weekend against the Cowboys. We'll get to that one on Thursday when I do that. And yeah, definitely interesting times in Foxborough and in East Rutherford. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those 2 teams. But for now, the Patriots get the defensive victory. Buffalo Bills and Washington Commanders. Bills blew out the Commanders. This was a little surprising to me. The Commanders played well their first few games. It just shows you that the Bills are on a much different level. Sorry about that. And it shows you how weak a team is that we're going to get to at the very end. But anyway, though, Bills just annihilated the Commanders, unfortunately, for Commanders fans. Commanders fans, you still have hope, though. This Buffalo team is really good. They're loaded. And yeah, I definitely still have faith in you guys. You're doing good, so keep up the good work. They have a crucial road test this week in Philly. As for the Buffalo Bills, they make me want to shout because they're on a roll right now. They just blew out the Vegas Raiders and the Commanders. They're obviously pissed about that New York game, the way that ended, so good for them. That was a good win by Buffalo. They have a crucial AFC East test this week against the Dolphins. First place in the AFC East is on the line in this game, so definitely keep an eye on that. It's going to be very interesting in Western New York on Sunday, so that'll definitely be a good game, so keep an eye out for that. And the Commanders, like I said, they have a crucial road test of their own, or they have a crucial test of their own this weekend when they go to Philly, so not much to say out of this game other than the Bills are really good. We'll come back to this next one last because I want to save it till the end. Next up, we're going to move on to the AFC North. Browns beat the Titans 24-3. This was a little surprising to me. A lot of people bet the Titans. They were being given 3.5 points. I was surprised a lot of people bet that, or I actually bet them because, or no, I take that back. I'm sorry. Like I said, I've said multiple times on this video, I don't bet. I'm 18 years old, so I'm not allowed to legally bet. But what I do is it's a game on ESPN Fantasy. It's called Pick'em, like where you can pick games against the spread, and it's totally 100% free of charge. You don't have to put any money down. You don't have to do any of that. So I highly recommend it if you do like betting, but you don't want to actually bet and lose money. So definitely consider that. I picked in this week Tennessee. 57% of people also picked. So I continue to go on Tennessee. So that was not a good one, but the Browns' run game is still there. And, yeah, just keep an eye out for the Browns. They're going to be good this year, so good win for Cleveland. Baltimore got stunned, 22-19. They lost to the Colts, so round of applause there. That put my Steelers in first place in the AFC North, so good win for the Colts. Thank you, Shane Steichen. Thank you, Gardner Minshew Mania. But that was awesome. So here's what happened. The Colts and Ravens, they went into overtime. Justin Tucker had a chance to win the game for the Ravens, and of all people... Hang on, let me pick up something off the ground. My watch fell on the floor, so I just want to pick that up real quick. But anyway, though, sorry about that. Justin Tucker, he missed from 61 yards to give the Ravens the win. Surprisingly, I knew he was going to miss that kick. Just a lever and all didn't look good in Baltimore. So I'm sorry about that, Justin, but you make a lot of field goals anyway. So don't worry about it. But the Colts, what a win. Congratulations to Shane Steichen. This team, I projected them to go a whopping 2-15, 3-14 in the preseason. They've already got 2 wins in the first 3 weeks. So congratulations, Shane. You're doing a great job with your team. Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, although Richardson didn't play this week, unfortunately. I was hoping he did because Richardson against Lamar. But Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, they are two of... I respect a lot. I respect the crap out of them. They're doing a great job with the Colts. So keep up the good work. This team is going to be a contender here. If not next year, then definitely the year after. But the Colts are finally in the right hands with a new young star quarterback and also a new young rookie head coach. So good job, Shane Steichen. Good job, Anthony Richardson. So very impressive. Sorry to burp. I always burp after I eat cereal in the mornings, and that makes me burp. So that's why I'm burping. I burp in the mornings a lot, so interesting. Anyway, no. I had to think for a minute. We're going to go down, stay in the AFC South with Jacksonville. We're going to go to Duval County, Florida, where the Houston Texans came into Jacksonville and destroyed the Jaguars. Guess who picked this outcome? I did. I was one of 9%, according to ESPN, who predicted this outcome. And guess what? It happened. I knew this for a fact. I knew this for a fact with the Browns and the Bengals. We're going to go back in time. We're going to go to Cleveland, Ohio. Browns-Bengals, week 1. I picked the Browns. Why did I pick the Browns? The Browns always beat the Bengals in Cleveland. Now fast forward to week 3. Texans-Jaguars. The Texans always beat the Jaguars in Jacksonville. I knew this, so therefore I picked the Houston Texans. They looked great. C.J. Stroud looks really good for H-Town. Hopefully T.J. Watt, Highsmith and company can hold Stroud this weekend, and hopefully Kenny Pickett can outdo him, but this Steelers defense is definitely going to face a tough task in C.J. Stroud. And the Steelers offense is also going to face a tough task in Will Anderson Jr., who is a wrecking ball, doing great things for DeMeco Ryans down there. I'm so glad to see him get his first win as an NFL head coach. I've always been a big fan of his. He was my favorite coaching candidate last year. So yeah, that was a great choice by Houston, and they're doing really good things. So good job by Houston. As for Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's early. I expected you guys to be 1-2. There's a big bounce back opportunity coming this week for you guys. Who did he even play? I'm sorry, I forget. I know I'm not the best with stuff, but anyway, though, there's a nice bounce back opportunity. Oh, they're in London. They're in London against Atlanta. That's a nice bounce back opportunity for them. So keep an eye out for them. Remember, this team was like 4-7 or something going into the final couple weeks. They climbed back and they made the playoffs, so good job for Jacksonville. They can easily do that again, so don't sweat it, Jacksonville. It's totally fine. You lose this game every year. Just flush it down the commode and move on to London and Atlanta. We did Tennessee, we did Indianapolis, so we're good there. Next up, we have Chargers and Vikings. The Chargers survived the Vikings. Oh my gosh, this was a crazy game. Look, we all knew this was going to be a come down to the wire, one-score game. This was the Super Bowl of one-score teams. The Chargers in the AFC, they're always the king of one-score games there. They just play to one-score games. Minnesota Vikings, led by Kevin O'Connell, the NFC king of one-score games. And so, what happens? Of course, you know what happens. It's a one-score game. But anyway, though, it was so bizarre, the ending of this game. So here's what happened. Chargers are up 28-24, and I know this term well because Hawkinson is on my fantasy team. Chargers are up 28-24. They string passes to Hawkinson. They get 2 passes, one for 5 yards, I think, another one for 6 yards, I think. And TJ Hawkinson, they're down to like the 9, 10, 11, 12 yard line, I think it is. So it's definitely interesting you have them anywhere in that range. So the crowd's making noise. The crowd's getting excited. They just want to see the Vikings win. Definitely interesting times in Minnesota, and they're fired up. So the next play, the crowd makes all this noise. Cousins snaps. Cousins fires. Throws it, intends it for Hawkinson. Hawkinson bobbles the ball. Tipped up in the air. Intercepted by Kenneth Murray Jr. That's how the ball game ends. Bizarre to say the least. The Chargers are still technically alive as they avoid an 0-2 start. Brandon Staley and Co. are going to look to even their record, get them back to 2-2 this week against the the Raiders. That would be a big one if they could get that. Improved to 2-2. And looking at putting it in perspective, the other games they lost were both one-score games to the Dolphins and the Titans, so things aren't too bad yet in LA. As for Minnesota, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This team has disappointed me so much. I'm very disappointed in this team this season, to say the least. I predicted you guys to go 12-5 and be one-score kings yet again because you did it last year, and I saw no reason why you couldn't do it this year. You've lost 3 games by 1 score. So last year you were the king of winning one-score games. This year you might be the king of losing one-score games. Bottom line is this. I love Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. I love Kevin O'Connell. I love Justin Jefferson, my favorite player in the league. I am a big Minnesota Vikings fan, only behind Detroit and Pittsburgh. I really wanted to see Minnesota be competitive, but I think now it's time to move on from Kirk Cousins, trade him either to the Jets or San Francisco, and give somebody else the chance. Because if San Francisco doesn't get rich this year or hit it this year with Brock Purdy, the way that roster looks, it's probably in his best interest that they trade him to New England for a draft pick because he could very well easily work with New England and Bill O'Brien and Bill Belichick. And then you go out and you get Kirk Cousins. That or the Jets. Because somebody needs to do something about this guy. He's not cut out to be the Minnesota Vikings quarterback. If you lose this week to Carolina, you need to tank the rest of the season. I was at the Pitt North Carolina game Saturday night. Drake May looks really good. Obviously, we all know a guy named Caleb Williams. If you get those one of those top 2 draft picks or even the number 1 pick, you are in good shape. You can easily turn your franchise around. You have Justin Jefferson. You can get an elite running back in the draft some way or another. There's this kid coming out from Penn State, 2025, I think, Nick Singleton. He's a sophomore now, so he won't be eligible till 2025. So If the Vikings tank this year, get Williams, May, or Penix Jr., or Ewers, or Nix. And then they do average next year, barely miss the playoffs, and they draft Nick Singleton, running back out of Penn State. And then they have an elite quarterback, pretty good running back, very good wide receiver core, and an even better defense. This team can be very good in a couple years again. So don't get me wrong, this Vikings team has potential, and I love what Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has done with his competitive rebuild. However, it might be time to just say this season's a waste and apologize to your fans. So that's all I have for Vikings Nation. And we did the other teams in the division. So yeah, we're going to come back to that game in Florida. You know which one I'm talking about, at the very end of the 1 o'clock game. So I'm saving the best for last. Dallas, Philly. Sorry, I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me, so I have to count out these. Next up, we're going to do Atlanta and Detroit. The Detroit Lions defeated the Atlanta Falcons 20-6 at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. This is a big win for Detroit. Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, give them all the credit in the world. They set down Bijan Robinson. Jahmyr Gibbs outdid Robinson. It shows you how good of a GM Brad Holmes is. His rookie class sewed up. Gibbs, Campbell, and also, too, for the Lions, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta. They did very good. So I give a lot of credit to Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and Silla Fordham. They've done great things. Great to have them as my second favorite team. Now for them, it's on to a huge class Thursday night for the division lead in Green Bay with the Packers. As for the Falcons, it's not over yet, but you guys will still look good. You just need to do better with your run game. Good job. Credit to Detroit for shutting the run game down, but still not bad for Atlanta. They could have easily, if they would have played a little tougher and harder, won this game or came closer to Detroit, but give Detroit credit. That game was at home. They're fired up, and yeah, give Detroit credit. So good job for the Lions. On to our next game now. We're going to recap Saints, Packers in Lambeau. Wow, what a comeback for Green Bay. Jordan Love is saying he's the real deal for Green Bay. Oh my gosh, I am so tired. I'm so sorry, guys. Love is saying he's the real deal for the Packers. Maybe they should build a new McDonald's outside of Lambeau. If Jordan Love can lead the Packers to a playoff berth and it's possible if Green Bay gets to the playoffs, wins the division, or someday wins a Lombardi with Jordan Love, they should build a McDonald's right outside of Lambeau and put up a sign instead of "I'm loving it," say "Jordan's loving it." One group of fans that are loving it are the Green Bay Packers fans. They're so happy they have their guy now. They won the Aaron Rodgers trade, it appears. So congratulations to Brian Gutekunst. Congratulations to Matt LaFleur. You guys have your guy. Good job. Credit goes where credit's earned. You guys earned it. Jordan Love earned it. I love this offense. Love Jane Reed. Love Kristen Watson. Love Luke Musgrave. Love Jones. Love Dillon. Wow. This team's going to be good. So Detroit, you're going to have your hands full Thursday night. So keep an eye out for that. That's all for that division in terms of 1 o'clock games. Rams, Seahawks, no. And now the moment you have all been waiting for. We're going to recap my favorite game of the week to recap. And this one is a big one. Drum roll, please. The one I've been waiting to recap with you all so long. Drum roll, please. You knew it. The Miami Dolphins beat the Denver Broncos 70-20 in Miami this weekend. A couple key takeaways from this one. Number one, the score was bad. The Denver defense is bad. The Denver coaching staff is bad. Worse than last year, I think. And that might be throwing it out on a limb, but everything except the head coach is worse than last year. The head coach is a little bit of a lunatic right now in Denver. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Sean Payton, as you could probably tell. I mean, I respect the crap out of him. He's done a great job as head coach of he did a great job as head coach of the Saints, won New Orleans a Super Bowl. But remember, Drew Brees is a million times better than Russell Wilson. You can't really blame this loss, though, on Russell Wilson. He did turn the ball over a lot, but Denver, they're just bad. That defense is bad. Patrick Surtain, I was disappointed with for sure. This Denver team. First off, let's get into Miami before we get into what needs to be done in Denver. Miami did really good this week, obviously. They're definitely a Super Bowl favorite. We'll see what they're truly made of this week when they go to Buffalo to take on the Bills in Orchard Park. If they could get a win up there, that would be a huge boost to their division odds, and they would basically be the top dog in the AFC East for 2023. So, yeah, big week coming up for the Dolphins. The offense looks good, even without Jalen Waddle. Devon Achane, I knew he was going to be ahead. He has now taken over this Dolphins team in the Miami area by storm. I was the only one who ranked him ahead of Bijan Robinson in the draft process. It looks like we all knew Devon Achane was flying under the radar. I knew it big time. He wasn't flying under my radar. I definitely noticed him. He reminds me so much of Isaiah Pacheco with the Chiefs. So good job, Devon Achane. He's the new hero right now. So hopefully he can do it again this week. So keep up the good work, Devon. You're making me look good. As for the Dolphins, they're really good, and they have a lot of work to do still on defense with Vic Fangio, but they'll get that figured out ASAP. So good job, Miami. Now it's on to Buffalo. We're going to come back down to Denver, which, yeah, we need to talk about Denver, all right. I don't know what to do. I was never a fan of them trading for Russell Wilson because I thought that this team, not after 2021, but way back when they needed a quarterback and when they hired Fangio to head coach, should have done a full all-out rebuild. You saw what happened in Detroit when they rebuilt. You see what happens in Cincinnati as they rebuild. Buffalo. Atlanta, possibly. Miami. San Francisco. The Rams. Rebuilding in the NFL works. The Denver Broncos should have done it. They should have drafted a rookie quarterback and rebuilt once George Patton got hired to be the GM in Denver. They elected not to. They elected to trade everything for Russell Wilson. They elected to get a contract for Russell Wilson. And now look at the mess the Denver Broncos are now. They're 0-3. They have no mojo. They have no leadership. Player-wise. I'm not talking about coaches. I'm not talking about Sean Payton, but they have no leadership at all player-wise. This team needs to tear it down and begin a full, massive, all-out rebuild. I mean, tank the rest of this year because you need a quarterback. You need to get rid of Russell Wilson. This trade was probably just as bad as the Dolphins-San Francisco trade for Trey Lance. But give them credit. Good job, Seattle, on that. So here's what I'd do if I were Denver. First of all, if George Patton does get fired in Denver, which I don't know. I was surprised he didn't get fired yesterday. I was surprised Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator, didn't get fired yesterday. They fired Nathaniel Hackett, after he lost 43-13 to the Rams on Christmas Day. This is 70-20. This is like 3 touchdowns worse. Didn't fire anybody. I know you have to give Vance Joseph time, but I'm surprised the GM, George Patton, didn't get the boot. But if this job does become open, this is the one general manager I would steer clear from. You have your hands full. It's just like Arizona. Where the team, like Denver and Arizona are the same way, I feel like. The team needs rebuilt, but you really can't rebuild. Why? Russell Wilson. That contract has so much dead money on it. If Denver cuts him tomorrow, they are going to be so bad financially because of that stupid contract. He's washed up. He's old. He's older than most. And he's no longer elite. This is not the 2015 or 2017 Russell Wilson that we knew from Seattle was going to light you up and make the most out of things. This is the 2022-2023 Russell Wilson who was traded to the Denver Broncos, who the general manager gave up a boatload to get him, and now look at the mess. Devon Witherspoon and Charles Cross. They are two elite players on each side of the ball. Those are who Seattle picked with the first-round picks. And Denver's darn near lucky they didn't give up their 2024 first, because it's going to be a top 5 pick. This team is a mess. And I don't know. I mean, what I think would be best for Denver is if they transfer this to a New England-style system. If George Paton indeed does get fired, a New England-style system, what I mean by that is they don't have a GM. Bill Belichick is the head coach and the de facto GM of the New England Patriots. Denver's probably best, if they do fire Paton, transferring to that system and making sure that Sean Payton's the head coach and the de facto GM. That's probably better off for Denver in the long run, because Sean Payton already has almost all control over that organization. I think the Walton Penners, they remind me somewhat, but not too much, of the Kraft family. But yeah, for sure, I think more needs done in Denver. I remember I read a lot, so I remember reading an article about the Russell Wilson trade, and the line that I will remember for a long time was the last line. If this trade blows up, referring to the Russell Wilson trade, if this trade blows up, expect massive changes to be made in Denver. I'm going to repeat that. If this trade blows up, expect massive changes to be made in Denver. This was back before the 2022 season. So it's pretty odd. And I was like to myself, really? This trade's going to blow up? I was so wrong. The one time I was so wrong was this. I didn't think this trade would blow up. I thought there was a better chance of me getting struck by lightning. And I'm not trying to curse myself or curse anything. I thought there was a better chance of me winning the lottery and getting struck by lightning on the same exact day that this Russell Wilson trade would blow up. Don't get me wrong, I loved what Seattle got in exchange for Russell Wilson. But I just didn't think that this trade would blow up. So I'm going to repeat that line again. If this trade blows up, expect massive changes to be made in Denver. So at the time of this article, or this thing I read being published, I don't know who was the owner. I don't think it was Walton Penner. I think it was the previous owner, the Elways or Bolins or whoever owned the team. Or the estate of Pat Bowlen, I think, is the owner of it. But anyway, the owner changed, obviously. George Paton was the GM. Nathaniel Hackett was the head coach. Justin Otten, I forget who he's with now. He's with another NFL team. I forget which one. Was the offensive coordinator. Ichiro, this is totally different sides of the ball, but still it's the coaching staff. Ejiro Evero was the defensive coordinator. Russell Wilson was the quarterback. The first massive changes were made last year on Christmas, the day after Christmas. The Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett at the request of their fans. Hackett gone. Otten gone. Evero gone. Jerry Rosberg, who did a good job with Russell Wilson, gone. George Paton, the GM, stays. And Mr. Penner said in his press conference or his press release of George, who I have great confidence in as our GM. Sorry to burp again. Nathaniel Hackett did not assemble this roster. Nathaniel Hackett did not trade all those draft picks for Russell Wilson. Nathaniel Hackett may have made some stupid play calling decisions, such as the fiasco in Seattle last year, letting the Raiders come back and win, and blowing leads. But he was in almost every game except for two. Christmas Day one and one other one. And he instilled fight in that team. They were down 28 or 34 nothing to Kansas City at home, and they almost won the game. He instilled fight in them. You don't get much fight losing 70-20 on the road. So I'm going to come back. Hopefully this is the final time. But I'm going to come back and conclude my talk on this game referring to the article I read, the last sentence. One more time. If the Russell Wilson trade blows up for Denver, expect massive changes to be made. The final massive change, and I'm totally not calling for this at all. The final because I really like the guy a lot as a GM. The final massive change to be made would be firing George Penn as GM. Do you think it happens? If you want to, comment below. If you're a Denver Broncos fan and you have an opinion on George Penn, comment below. But I'm not going to take a side in this because I do like him as a GM. I think he was somewhat aggressive there. I think he could obviously, like every GM, do a little bit of a better job. But that's all I have to say about that. But anyway, we're going to move on to some 4 o'clock games. We'll save the other 4 o'clock blowout, the best game of the week in that regard, for last. Obviously, because it was a big one. So, yeah. Meanwhile, we're going to circle back to 4 o'clock games. Let's see which ones we had on the itinerary. I think there's only 3 of them. Carolina and Seattle. Seattle won this game pretty convincingly. I think it was like 34-24 or 27-17. Good job, Seattle. You guys earned every right to win this game, so good job for them. I didn't watch much of this game, but Seattle looks back on track, that's for sure. As for Carolina, they're a mess right now. Carolina's GM, he's another one, I think, on the hot seat, unfortunately. Trading all those picks for Bryce Young, who has not done much this year, which is unfortunate because I ranked him as my number 1 prospect. So that's disappointing, to say the least. So credit's given where credit's due, though. So I'll give credit to Seattle for the win. Carolina, you guys still have a lot of work to do. They play the Vikings this week. So this week's like the Tankathon bracket week, because it's kind of like a playoff in its own little way. You have the Vikings going against the Panthers and the Broncos going against the Bears. All 4 of those teams are 0-3. The losers of those kind of are the winners because they get the top 2 draft picks, and the losers at that point can pretty much start the process of battling it out for the worst team in the league and the right to draft Caleb Williams next year, number 1 overall. So keep an eye out for sure. As for the other 4 o'clock games, obviously we talked a lot about this one. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys losing to the Arizona Cardinals. How about that? We talked about that one earlier. We're going to go a little more in detail. I think Prescott & Co. was rattled. This is unfortunate for Dallas because that was essentially a home game for them. So many Cowboys fans. That stadium was packed with Cowboys fans on the road. They're all probably upset. They paid all that money to see their team lose. Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones and Dak, they're probably all super embarrassed, especially when you have we see this a lot as Pirate fans here, the baseball team in Pittsburgh, because fortunately they're not very good. Hopefully that changes next year and they could get into the playoffs. But typically when teams like the Phillies, the Mets, the Yankees, the Cubs, those kind of teams come into town, the Dodgers, half of the ballpark is packed with visiting fans. This was the same thing Sunday in State Farm Stadium. Half of State Farm Stadium, if not over half, was packed with Dallas Cowboy fans. Cardinals fans probably thought they were the minority. Arizona shut up Dallas. That was huge, and that probably felt super embarrassing for Dallas. You had all the fans there, and you had the chance to start 3-0, and you just couldn't do that. I mean, that probably... Hopefully that's motivating to McCarthy and Prescott to turn it around next week, because they have an interesting game against the Patriots in Dallas, which is a true home game for them. So they blew this one on to the next one. As for Arizona, like I said, this team is clearly not tanking for sure. Yeah, so keep an eye out for the Cardinals. They might be more competitive than people think this year. I think there was only 425 games to remember. Let me real quickly think in my head here and go through it. I'm sorry, it's probably gonna take a minute, but let me just make sure I'm not missing any before I get to the grand finale in that regard. Sorry for the eerie sounds of the silence and all that too, by the way, but Kansas City, or we'll get to them. Vegas we did because of the game day. Chargers did, Broncos did, Cowboys did, Eagles will do. I think we covered the whole NFC North. Packers, Lions we covered. Bears and Bears will cover. That's the surprise game. Bears will cover last. Vikings we covered. Falcons we covered. Panthers we covered. Saints and Bucks. Bucks will be the Monday night game, so that's last. We'll cover them. Cardinals we covered. Seahawks covered. Rams will cover last, and then San Francisco. Sorry about that. Sorry about the eerie silence there. Sorry about the weird sounds there, but I just needed a minute to think over which teams I covered, which teams I didn't cover, and also too, I'm sorry too for the length of this episode being so long. It's hard to be short when you're talking about all these games. But for the final 425 game, it looks like we have a love story in Kansas City. Yes, we do have a love story in Kansas City. It's a love story, baby. Just say yes. And it was definitely a love story for the Kansas City Chiefs. They got the job done 41-10 over the Chicago Bears. We're going to get into this for both perspectives because it is a very important game. It was probably the game of the week for one reason. Taylor Swift. So obviously we all know, and I'm going to get my take on this. So obviously we all know that Taylor Swift likes Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce likes Taylor Swift. So Travis Kelce went to a Taylor Swift concert this past summer on the Eras Tour in Arrowhead. And, so Travis Kelce went. They make these friendship bracelets, Taylor Swift fans. So Kelce made a friendship bracelet for Taylor Swift that had his cell phone number because he has a big crush on her. It got to her, and he was like, I'm disappointed I didn't get the chance to talk to her or meet her because he typically comes out and talks, and all he wanted to do was meet her. And so this week on the Pat McAfee show, I don't typically give credit to WVU people, especially WVU people who interview Aaron Rodgers, who's one of my least favorite players in the league. So typically I don't give credit to Pat McAfee, but this week I give him all the credit in the world. So good job, Pat McAfee. A WVU person did something good. So good job, Pat McAfee. He brought Travis Kelce on, and Travis Kelce said, I told her, I saw you rock the stage at Arrowhead. You should come see me rock the stage at Arrowhead. So Taylor Swift shows up to Arrowhead to see Travis Kelce play, sitting next to my favorite, Mama Kelce. And so they watch the game together. She is so happy and so excited when Kelce scores a touchdown. So she's his biggest fan, obviously. They were walking out of the game together. He had a Taylor Swift concert outfit on. So yeah, I definitely think they're a thing, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, or they definitely like each other or have feelings for each other. One more thing before we move on to the Bears-Chiefs game and do takeaways on that. One more thing. I don't know about this couple. I'm surprised of all the people she could have possibly ended up with. She picked Travis Kelce, but it's definitely a good fit for her because Kansas City's on top of the football world. But, obviously, Kansas City's doing good. They have an easy schedule coming up. They have the Jets and the Vikings on the road. Those are definitely two games they should get easy wins in. Then they come home for Denver. This team should easily be sitting at 5-1, for sure, before weeks. I don't know who they play week 7. We'll get to that week 7, but nonetheless, though, this team should easily be 5-1 here for the first couple of weeks. They play the Chargers, so 5-1, 6-1 for the first couple of weeks, maybe even 7-1. So things are looking bright in Kansas City for sure. Credit to Brett Veach, the GM, who brought in Mahomes and made this all happen, and the other players. Credit to Scott Pioli, the GM, who was the old GM of Kansas City, Brian Travis Kelce. Credit to those two. They've done great things so far to make that team the competitive team that it is and that it's meant to be. So, yeah, absolutely. Good job to them. So, credit's given where credit's due, and I give a lot of credit to those two individuals for sure. Next up, we have the Chiefs' perspective. Obviously, I said it's good. Next up, we have the Bears side of things. This was pretty sad and embarrassing to watch if you're a Bears fan. You have the biggest pop star in the world, super happy that your opponent scored touchdowns and your opponent's romping all over you. So I definitely think that this could be a turning point for the Bears, especially if they lose Sunday to the Broncos. And I definitely think changes could be made in Chicago coming up here if things get ugly, possibly firing coaches and stuff like that. I mean, let's look at the Bears. If they go back-to-back weeks losing to a team on the road, and I get it, they're the defending Super Bowl champions, and you had the first overall pick in the draft this past year. Well, you traded it, but you technically would have had it because you're the worst team in the league last year. But I get it. There's a far much more talent differential. But they spent all this money in free agency, invested in that O-line with Darnell Wright, and did all these other things. And then you go into Arrowhead thinking you have a chance at competing. You're 0-2. You go into Arrowhead, and you get pounded by 30 points. And one of the biggest music stars in the whole world of all time is cheering for the opposing team as they score touchdowns on you like crazy. And you're getting pounded. To possibly this next week, going back home to Chicago and losing to a team, if they do lose to Denver, losing to a team that just lost by 50 points and put up 70 points. At that point, I think you need to consider benching Justin Fields. I think you need to put Matt Eberflus on the hot seat and Luke Getsy on the hot seat for sure. This Bears team's a mess. I knew darn well this Bears team was going to be a mess. They don't have any grit. They don't have any inspiration. There's no leadership there. And this team needs something new. So do something, McClaskeys, or the Bears are screwed for even longer. One more thing, and we're going to transition now into the Monday night games before I wrap up this super long episode. I know I did a lot of talking. I'm sorry about that. But one last thing here before we transition into Monday Night Football. I saw a post this morning introducing Taylor Swift fans to introducing Swifties to football, because all the Swifties are going to love football, love Kansas City now. Introducing Swifties to football. They said one of the rules are, if you want to be a football fan, you got to hate the Cowboys. And one of the teams that won last night definitely could agree with that statement. I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. Great win last night for Philadelphia. I'm starting to hop on the bandwagon for Philly. Obviously, I have friends from Philly that I met at college. I have cousins that are from Philadelphia as well. Believe it or not, they also go to Pitt. But that's funny. But I'm hopping on this bandwagon real fast. Good win for the Eagles. They proved they're for real. First place in the NFC East. This team is still around. This team is still for real. Jalen Carter's a beast. I told you he should have been drafted much higher than he was. Should have been drafted third overall. Same on the teams that, I'm not going to say Houston, because Houston did get a stud in Will Anderson Jr. and CJ Stroud's doing good. But same on, I'm not going to say the Colts either, because they drafted a good quarterback. But possibly Seattle or possibly Detroit. Same on those teams, or Arizona. Same on those teams for not drafting this kid. Howie Roseman got a steal in Jalen Carter. He's kept his character issues low-key. So good job, Howie Roseman. He's done a nice job with Philly for sure. This team is now completely built up to be a dark horse Super Bowl, or not a dark horse, but a real Super Bowl contender. they could easily be back there this year, and I hope they do well. So good win for Philly. As for Tampa, don't sweat the small stuff. You did much better than some of your other NFC South teams. It's a long year. It's going to come down to either you guys, the Saints, or the Falcons. Just stay the course, and you have potential to win this division. So keep up the good work, Tampa. You're doing fine. Last game, the Super Bowl rematch, Rams and the Bengals. The Bengals eke this one out 19-16. So good win for Cincinnati. This was important to them. They avoided 0-3. The Rams are 1-2. The Bengals are 1-2. What a difference a year and a half can make. But I think Cincinnati is going to rebound. They're going to come back, and they're going to stay strong. This happened last year. They turned it around relatively fast. So, yeah, keep an eye out for the Bengals. That's for sure. As for the Rams, it's not a lost cause yet. They play the Colts in Indianapolis this week. It'll be interesting to see what happens there in that regard. I imagine they're going to stay in the Cincinnati, Indianapolis area somewhere or another and do their practices there instead of fly out and fly back. But they probably will fly out and fly back, to be honest. But definitely interesting times going on in LA. Hopefully they can be okay this year. But yeah, they're definitely keeping low key. So keep an eye out for them. Still keep an eye out for Cincinnati for sure. Anyway, that's all I think I have for you guys today in terms of our week 3 recap. I'm sorry that this video was so extra long. It's just there was a lot to talk about this week. This was definitely the most interesting week of football yet this season. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. I will see you next on Thursday when I do my week 3 predictions. And I'm definitely going to try to not be as long with those. So that's all I have for you guys today. Have a good one. Take care. Stay safe. Enjoy these next couple days. And last but not least, peace.